Hi, welcome to LearnStroke IAS classes by Arjun. You're listening to the daily Hindu news analysis with current affairs news leads with Arjun R Shankar, and today the date is 15th December 2022. Also, all the viewers who are watching the current affairs, you should also watch the separate editorial summaries for IAS based on various important newspapers like Hindu, Indian Express, Times of India, Hindustan Times, Business Times, etc. So we will feature the best important editorials as per the UPSC syllabus. So please do check out this. Moving on to the top important news lead is the wholesale price inflation fell to 5.85% in November. So the article is important from GS Paper 3 Economy. It talks about the India's wholesale price inflation has fell to 5.85% in November, which is actually a very good thing. And thanks to the dip in the price led by the food items, whose inflation slipped from 6.5% to just 2.2%. So the food inflation has just come down to 2.2% from 6.5%, which is a commendable thing. And even the primary articles, the inflation in primary articles halved from 11% to 5.5%. So this brings us again, what is the concept of wholesale price index, or what is the wholesale price inflation, or what do you mean by the wholesale price inflation? So you need to know this concept. So simply understand that you should know that India's wholesale price inflation has come down to 5.85%, which is a very good thing. The wholesale price index reflects the changes in the average prices of goods at the wholesale level. That is, commodities sold in bulk, traded between businesses rather than goods bought by consumers. So it is not taking into consideration mainly the consumer part. It is actually taking in the average prices of goods at the wholesale level. So there are certain limitations in WPI, and WPI does not consider the price of services, and it does not reflect the consumer price situation of the country. So the wholesale price index is released by the economic advisor in the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So it's brought out by the economic advisor in the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So basically, the purpose of WPI is to inspect movement in price of goods that reflect supply and demand in industry. So you should know that the WPI provides estimation of inflation at the wholesale transaction level for the economy overall. So that is why the WPI based inflation is used by the government in preparation of fiscal, trade, and other economic policy. So when you say that the WPI is actually rising, obviously that is used to measure the level of wholesale inflation. So please do understand this concept of what is wholesale price index or wholesale inflation. And the word itself says this is the wholesale. This is at the wholesale level, and the previously that was at the consumer level. And next is regarding geographical indication tax sought for Kerala's legendary Bepur Uru. So this is again GS paper 1 history and culture. You should know what do you mean by Bepur Uru in Kerala. This is actually, Uru is made of wood without using any modern techniques. So this is very old boat actually. So this also brings us, what is a geographical indication tag? So Uru is a wooden dough or a ship handcrafted by skilled artisans and carpenters in Bepur in Calicut in Kerala. So the Urus are made of premium woods without using any modern techniques, and the record says that the Bepur has been a legendary maritime hub for traders across the world from the first century, and the iconic Uru ships have been in high demand for over 2,000 years. The Urus are being very popular. So this is actually something that they have discussed here. And you should know what you mean by geographical indication tag. A geographical indication tag is a sign used on products that have a specific geographic origin and possess qualities or a reputation that are due to that origin. So in order to get a GI tag, almost a sign, the product or a thing must identify a product as originating in a given place. Say, take an example, the Mysore silk is unique handcraft from Karnataka. The Uttarakhand Tej Patta is actually given the GI certificate as a first product to made it to the list. It's a popular spice named Uttarakhand Tej Patta. And what about the Alapi green cardamom from Kerala? It's also a spice. So a GI registration basically gives the legal protection, prevents unauthorized use of GI products, and promotes the economic prosperity of the producers of GI tag goods. So know more about GI tag goods and what are some of the famous geotag products that we can find in India. Moving on, next is high powered panel to prevent child labor abuse in Rajasthan. Uh, this is actually talking about the child labor that is happening in Rajasthan and how can you prevent that child labor. I will give you a case study question for GS paper 4 and also GS paper 2 welfare and GS paper 4 case study. Imagine that you are a district magistrate in this district where there is high rampant prevalence of child labor and abuse of children. Even the local leaders of the village and some of the school authorities are also involved in this. What will you do? What are the steps that you will take? Can be also a case study question for your GS paper 4. So, a high powered committee in Rajasthan will monitor the case of child labor and abuse, and Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot has approved a proposal to appoint the first of its kind committee, which will be headed by the Child Empowerment Minister. It's really happy to know that there is a child empowerment minister in a state. That's a good portfolio. And he cited the cases of majority of the child labor has been seen in bangle making industries, factories of Jaipur, and even a NGO, a very famous NGO, is actually helping the department to function it. And the department is also collecting the information of school children who are actually not present in the school for 30 days. And it is also looking at the tribal dominated belt in Rajasthan, the southern Rajasthan, which is forced into labor in the cotton seed farms where they migrate to neighboring Gujarat. And definitely child labor migration was essentially a socio-economic problem. So you should know from a GS paper 2 perspective welfare what is poverty, what is child abuse, what is child labor, and a case study question that you can answer. Supreme Court to hear a plea on deletion of entries in AP Telangana rolls. So this is nothing but the Supreme Court has decided to examine a petition alleging that the Election Commission has unilaterally deleted 46 lakh entries from the electoral rolls of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, which Election Commission calls as the purification process in the electoral list. And this has brought in another important question for GS paper 2 polity and governance. What is NIRPAP, or National Electoral Rolls Purification and Authentication Program? National Electoral Rolls Purification Authentication Program called NIRPAP. So you should know that what is the basic concept of this NIRPAP. And you should know that the Election Commission of India has launched this concept of NIRPAP throughout the country with the prime objective of bringing a totally error-free and authenticated electoral roll. So during the program, the most important thing that you should note is the electors' photo identity cards, which is called as the EPIC. The electors' photo identity card will be linked with the Aadhaar data for the purpose of authentication. So the election identification, you should know that the electors' photo identity cards will be linked with the Aadhaar, and the NIRPAP will focus on improving image quality of electors along with sorting out like corrections of errors. And electors have been provided the facility to feed their respective Aadhaar number through SMS, email, mobile application, even National Voter Service Portal or NVSP. So this is basically the Election Commission has launched it to bringing a total error-free and authenticated electoral roll. So this is what the Supreme Court is actually hearing a petition that the Election Commission has deleted this. So you should know what you mean by a NIRPAP. Next is regarding Kerala government. Kerala is actually a new moves to seek sports to tackle drug menace. So this is a good question in GS paper 1 society, because the excise department in Kerala is gearing up for this attempt, because children basically have a high energy. So if you use that high energy for playing, release it in the sporting events, that definitely the children's energy will be tackled, and a good move, definitely a good move. So GS paper 1 society. CBI launched 15 cases for derogatory posts since 2019, says government. So this article is very important in the sense you need to know. The article talks about what is a hate crime, and let's see what the article has it. The article talks about what is a hate crime, and what is the National Crime Records Bureau or the NCRB's main duty in this. And you should know that the CBI has registered 15 cases from November 29 to 22 in connection with alleged derogatory post against the government and constitutional functionaries. So, derogatory posts have gone against the government and the constitutional functionaries. And that some judges of Supreme Court and Andhra Pradesh High Courts were being intentionally targeted through interviews to the media, abusive comments, and threats on social media platforms. So NCRB is connecting, and what is the concept of hate crime? So let's give you two important questions for the mains. GS paper 2, law, governance, police. The priorities of the police in India have changed from the maintenance of law and order to multiple issues. Discuss with illustration. So the priorities of policing in India has changed from the maintenance of law and order to many other multiple issues. Crime records play a vital role in the scheme of police working for the prevention and detection of crime. Explain the key measures which is facilitating the police. So crime records also plays a very vital role in this, and how are we going to make a big change in this? Next, you need to know the overview, because the hate crime is being discussed because the Indian Penal Code did not define any offense as hate crime, and the National Crime Records Bureau did not maintain data under the hate crime process. So that is a problem. The IPC is not listing any hate crime. So hate crime refers to criminal acts which are motivated by bias against an individual or a social group because of certain differences, difference in religion, custom, etc. So hate crime in India is defined in terms of harm done to a community at a large, rather than individuals' right to freedom of speech and expression. So in India, hate speech is prohibited, which is based upon religion, ethnicity, and culture. It is neither defined in the Indian legal framework nor can be easily defined due to the different forms the hate crimes can take in. And obviously, we have already discussed about National Crime Records Bureau, which is an agency responsible for collecting and analyzing crime data. And it is located in Delhi, and it's part of the Ministry of Home Affairs, set up in 1986, was formed after merging the Interstate Criminals Data Branch of the DCPC, the Directorate of Coordination of Police Computer, and Central Fingerprint Bureau of CBI. So, as a part of National Crime Records Bureau, the CCTNS, Crime and Criminal Tracking Networking System, was approved in 2009, and the Digital Police Portal was launched in 2017. So these are important things that you should know about this hate crime and National Crime Records Bureau. India shares Aadhaar rollout experience with the G20 members. So this is again a very important article regarding GS paper 2 international relations and GS paper 3 economy perspective. And I'll give you two important mains question from GS paper 3. What is digital public infrastructure? How can it lead to financial inclusion? So what do you mean by the digital public infrastructure, or a DPI? And how can it lead to financial inclusion? What is two-pillar solution? How does it address the tax challenges arising from the digitalization of economy? So what do you mean by the two-pillar solution? So you should need, and some of the important topic that you can find in this article is, what is a finance track? What is digital public infrastructure? What is a two-pillar tax package? And what is OECD, or Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development? So this is a big article, and already we have discussed about what you mean by, we have already discussed about the concept of the finance track, because it was discussed in the perspective of G20 meeting, and how finance track is very important. It brings the central bank governors, the foreign ministers from G20 countries, and have discussions. So next is regarding what is OECD. The OECD is an intergovernmental organization with over 38 member countries, founded in 1961. to stimulate economic progress and world trade. So it is a forum where majority of the countries describe themselves as committed to democracy, and the majority of the OECD members are high income economy with a very high human development index. And coming to what do you mean by the digital public infrastructure, the DPI refers to solutions and systems that enable the effective provision of essential society wide functions and services in the public and private sectors. So that includes digital forms of ID verification, civil registration, payment, digital transaction, money transfers, data exchange, information system, etc. So digital public infrastructure is basically the digital solution that enable the effective provision for society and services of both public and private goods. So that is very important. And what do you mean by the two pillar tax package? On November 4th, 2021, 137 countries under the OECD adhered to the statement on two pillar solution to address the tax challenge coming from the digitalization of economy. And that was a question that I asked, how it is leading to the digitalization from the economy. And you should know that the pillar 1 aims to ensure a better distribution of taxation of multinationals, better distribution of taxation of multinational, and pillar 2 control tax competition on corporate profits by introducing a global minimum tax of 15%. So one is better distribution of taxation of multinationals, and second is uh, control tax competition and corporates profit by introducing a global minimum tax or a GMT of 15% by 2023. So these are some of the important concepts of two pillar tax package. So know from GS paper 3 economy, very important. Next is need for fiscal prudence in implementing PFMS. GS paper 3 economy and GS paper 2 government regulation, and this brings us an important mains question. What is public financial management system? How is this acting as an important tool in governance? Explain. And what is public financial management system? That is also very important, and you should know the PFMS is basically the what do you mean by PFMS? The PFMS is a web-based online software application developed and implemented by the Controller General of Accounts, the CGA, Department of Expenditure, Ministry of Finance. So it's actually run by the CGA or Controller General of Accounts, and it was started during 2009 with the objective of tracking funds released under all plan schemes of Government of India. So all the funds released on the all plan schemes of Government of India. So it gives effective decision support system of tracking of funds, real-time information of resource availability, integration with the application of the government departments. And after that, after the schemes, the scope was enlarged to cover direct payment to beneficiaries under all schemes. So it is very important regarding the public financial payments, receipts, accounting, and much more of the government is all done through the PMFS platform. So know about this. Next is Ekalavya School. Ekalavya schools running with just 58% of teachers, because Ekalavya Model Residential School, as per the data submitted by the states, there are around 394 functional schools, and the proportionate teacher requirement is around 7,000 plus, and presently there are only 4,000 teachers with the Ekalavya school. So they are underperforming. So what do you mean by the Ekalavya Model Residential School? So nothing but it's called the EMRS. The EMRS or Ekalavya Model Residential School was started in the year 97-98 to give quality education to the scheduled tribe children in remote areas. And the school focused not only on academic education but on the all-round development of students. And each school should have a capacity of 480 students from class 6 to 12 standard. And the various grants for construction of schools and recurring expense to the state governments were actually given under Article 271, Article 275 of the Constitution. And you need to have the Ekalavya schools will be on par with the Navodaya Vidyalaya. So you should know what you mean by the Ekalavya schools. Next is titles given for just 50% of the total claims on the forest land. So this article has created an important concept called GS paper 3 forest environment, What are Forest Rights Act of 2006? The Forest Rights Act, India, or the Scheduled Tribe and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Recognition of Forest Right Act, is known by many other names like Tribal Acts or the Tribal Land Act or Forest Act. Uh, they are known by the different names. It deals with the rights of the communities that dwell in the forest, including scheduled tribes, over land and other resources which have been denied to them over the years because of the continuation of forest loss. So it is a right of the communities living or dwelling in the forest. So there are many previous policies like the Forest Act of 1865, 1894, 1927 that prevented the local communities from using the resources. So Grama Sabha is the authority to initiate a process on the tribal communities. So know about the Forest Right Acts of 2006. Next is House. The committee calls for medical facility for troops at forward locations. GS Paper 3 Defense. This has brought in many important areas such as the committee said that the people and the forward troops in Dras and Kargil sector, the medical facilities and many other facilities are only minimal. So this brings us another important article regarding GS Paper 2. What is Public Accounts Committee? Because the PAC in the 55th report said that the provisioning, procurement, and issue of high altitude clothing, equipment, ration, housing should be made, completely implemented. And there is something called as CICG. What is CICG? It's the Central Inventory Control Group. So a huge quantity of essential items under the SCME category, that means a special clothing and mountaineering equipment category, were procured. So what is CICG? CICG is an automated centralized database created to mitigate such issues. So it is a central inventory control group is actually a automated centralized database to solve the problems like procuring of ration, equipment, housing, etc. So the PAC report has said this thing. So already you know what you mean by CAC. What do you mean by PAC or Public Accounts Committee? Because the Controller and Auditor General, the CAG India submits 3 annual audit reports before the President, who lays it before the Parliament. These reports are examined by the Public Accounts Committee, which is a financial committee, a standing committee. The PAC was introduced in 1921 in the Government of India Act 1919 called the Montfort Reforms. And the PAC is basically a parliamentary committee that examines the annual audit reports like the public accounts. The PAC examines the public expenditure because the CAG submits the reports like audit report on appropriation accounts, audit report on financial accounts, audit report on public undertakings. So report on public undertaking, financial accounts and appropriation accounts are basically cross-checked, evaluated by the PAC committee. So this is a polity question and the whole issue is actually from defense perspective. Mumbai to experience very poor AQI in the coming year. So this has brought in another GS Paper 3, energy, clean energy, environment. This has brought in the concept of what is air quality index, because it says that Mumbai is going to be highly polluted. And what is SUFFER? SUFFER is the system of air quality, weather forecasting and research. Because you need to know that what is air quality index? Air quality index is actually an index for reporting air quality on a daily basis. It is a measure of how air pollution affects one's health within a short period of time. So the Environmental Protection Agency calculates the AQI for 5 major pollutants. One is ground level ozone. The second is particle pollution or particulate matter, the PM 2.5 or PM 10. Carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, and nitrogen dioxide. So please understand ground level ozone, particle PM 2.5, PM 10, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, and nitrogen dioxide. So the higher the AQI, the greater the level of air pollution. And definitely, SUFFER is actually a weather forecasting system. It is currently operationalized in metros like Delhi, Pune, Mumbai, and Ahmedabad, and it is targeted at places to spread awareness about the harmful effects of air pollution. It not only monitors air quality but forecasts the quality of air. Implemented by the IITM and the Indian Meteorological Department, it comes under the Earth Sciences Ministry, SUFFER. So please know about this. Moving on, the Maharashtra government to monitor interfaith, intercaste couples. So that is a funny thing, and it's not funny. The government said it is not funny. Society, because the Maharashtra government has constituted a 13-member committee to collect details of couples of interfaith, intercaste marriage, and the maternal family of the women. If they throw the women out, if you marry a person of outcast, and if they are thrown from the family details are very important, because they say that in case of a serious problem, we need to get in touch with the family. So not a funny thing actually, but in case of a problem, the state should have a proper machinery to evaluate this. GS paper 1, society perspective. Stop vacations for judiciary demands Sushil Modi. This sounded very sensible and logical, because GS paper 2 law. He said that BJP MP Sushil Kumar said that judicial vacations should be vacated because there are high number of cases pending in the courts, because the courts remain shut for around 47 days in the summer and 20 days during the winter. So that is close to 70 days the courts remain vacant and do not take any cases. So that should be taken off. So what is your opinion regarding that? The number of journalists jailed has reached record high. GS paper 3 media, because this year's top 5 jailers of journalists were Iran, China, Myanmar, Turkey, and Belarus. Because a lot of people this year, record number of people. This was brought out by a non-profit organization called CPJ, Committee to Protect Journalists. And the number of journalists jailed were practicing, they were in a very high number. So this is relating to the media. Specific date will be given for pleas on Article 370, because a specific lot of petitions have challenged the centre's unilateral move to impose curfew and unravel the unique federal structure of India by dividing Jammu and Kashmir without taking the consent of the people. So it is actually questioning the specific date will be given to hear the petitions for the removal of special status or 370 of Constitution, which is giving special status to Jammu and Kashmir. The petition said that this goes against the heart of Indian federalism. People were not consulted. So a special date will finalize this. GS paper 2 polity. And UN remove Iran from women's right body over rally crackdown. So this is a good move. A lot of pro-democratic people have said that the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, or UNCSW. So this brings us, what do you mean by UNCSW, United Nations Commission on the Status of Women? So basically the Commission of Status of Women, the CSW, is a principal global intergovernmental body dedicated to the promotion of gender equality. So it is a functional commission of the Economic and Social Council, the ECOSOC. So the CSW, the Commission of Status on Women, is actually a functional thing of the ECOSOC, Economic and Social Council. So it's very important for promoting women rights, and Iran, the UN removes Iran from women rights body. So also a question for GS mains: how is United Nations Commission on the Status of Women shaping global standards on gender equality and empowerment of women? Analyze. So I'm giving a mains question from GS paper 2 international relations. Next is Peru declares state of emergency as ousted leader remains in prison. So still there is problems happening in Peru. Ahead of United Nations Security Council session, India is heading that session. Pakistan raised claims against India. So this time Pakistan has come against so many claims that India is responsible for many global terrorism and a series of terror attacks in Pakistan, including the attack on China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And even India is actually blocking terror designation request for 4 Indian national who were actually who were promoting crime, and even India was responsible for the masterminding the blast near Hafiz Saeed's home in Lahore. So Pakistan raises a lot of questions, because this time the global counterterrorism principles and the way forward session will be chaired by India as president of the UN Security Council this month. So Pakistan has come up a lot of claims regarding India. GS paper to international relations. And Pentagon may send Patriot missiles batteries to Ukraine. So this is GS paper to international relations. What is the Patriot missile? So US is considering giving this Patriot missile to Ukraine to shoot down any incoming missiles to Ukraine. So the each missile Patriot is one of the most advanced air defense system that the America possesses. Each missile costs around $3 million, and the system was very effective when they came into use in the 1980s, and are in use by US allies in the Pacific and Europe as well as Saudi Arabia. So the Patriot missile. So read more about this. Next is US military creates space unit in South Korea. Again, a mains question for you, because that's creating a new space unit in South Korea. What is the US Space Force? What is the US Space Force? How is it acting as a geopolitical stabilizer? Because you should know that the US military has launched a Space Force unit in South Korea, which will enable Washington for a better monitoring of its rivals like North Korea, China, and Russia. Because the activation of US Space Forces in Korea at the Osan Air Base near Seoul came after North Korea test fire a nuclear capable missile designed to strike the United States. So, what is the US Space Force? The US Space Force was launched in December 29 under the President Donald Trump as the first new US military service in more than 70 years. So the Space Force has been a effective organization to take care of the satellite system for civilian military navigation, intelligence, communication, the US interest in space, etc. So it's know about the US Space Force. And there is a very important article called the fusion energy breakthrough by the US. So it's a very big article, and definitely this will be discussed in the science and technology. We are running a science and technology summaries, so I'll definitely include that in this. Next is center to take measures to further help inflation. So this brings us to an important question, GS paper 3 economy. What is supplementary demand for grants? We have already discussed it many number of time. When already a particular number of amount is earmarked for a particular thing, when the expenditure earmarked for that scheme exceeds it, you need extra fund to run that scheme. The supplementary demand for grants are actually created. And what is stagflation? And you need to know what you mean by stagflation. So the finance minister said that the center would be taking measures to ease inflation, which has actually dipped below the upper tolerance level set by RBI, that is 6%. It has come down to, the retail inflation has come down to 5.88%. And it has also said that the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act scheme, the decline in demand for Narega. There is a decline in trend for this. And the finance minister said that there is no fear of stagflation because India is one of the fastest growing economy with low inflation levels. So India is not fearing a stagflation. And the government will also be able to meet the fiscal deficit target of 6.4% of GDP for 23. So there is a fiscal deficit target for government for 6.4%, which will be tackled by the government will tackle that. So these are some of the most important news leads of the day. So read about this, subscribe to the channel, LearnStroke IAS classes by Arjun, read more, and share with your friends who are preparing for civil services.